Yeah, that was for real. Like,
Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Five Boys in a Business, a podcast where we talk about business, our family, and the many shenanigans involved. You can catch us on all the podcast channels most Mondays. We're kind of doing them live from the bunker right now at various times of the day on Mondays, but nonetheless live on Mondays. So don't forget, Allie sporting some merch there. So don't forget to check out the asbcmerch.com store where you can check out our different merch items that we have available. So this week we have myself and Richie, and then we also have Allie Cook in studio. APC, say hey.
hello.
And then Harrison on the other computer. And you might be saying, why are we doing it this way? Well, we are into staff rotation. So thanks to COVID-19, we are on weekly staff rotation. So APC's on Team B, not that they're Team B and we're Team A, but we are kind of Team A. Okay. And so she's in the clinic this week and we are out of the clinic. So that's why we're doing things remotely.
There you go.
So Harrison, can you hear us?
Yes, he can.
He can. Is he participating or is he just not saying anything today?
He's not saying anything today.
He's not saying anything. Okay, then Allie. So tell everybody what your job title is. I know you've been on the podcast before, but for all those new listeners, what's your job title? What's your training? What's your specialty? What's the thing that you really enjoy the most? Tell everybody about that.
Okay, I'm a registered veterinary technician. I'm working mostly in surgery, so doing a lot of prepping and catheters and shaving and getting all that. And then I just finished a course through Karen Pryor Academy for positive reinforcement clicker training. And so I'm slowly getting into that as well.
So that's one of the behaviors, one of the things you're passionate about.
Yes.
Yeah. So one of the things that we've been talking about in the past several podcasts, the fact that everybody's at home and everybody is feeling like, why not now? Now is a great time to get a puppy or a kitten. And so we have seen a boom as far as puppies that have been adopted and brought home to their households the past couple of weeks. I think Dr. Duckwall saw like maybe 15 puppies last week. And I think it's great because people have the time to be at home with them, you know, so that nobody's going back to school. So everybody has basically until August to be home with their dogs, which provides an opportunity, but potentially some pitfalls. So what do you think some of the more common pitfalls are some of the owners are going to fall into being at home with the puppies?
Probably social anxiety or just separation anxiety, I guess is better, because the people are home with them all the time, playing with them. They're probably, I wouldn't think most owners would think about crate training as being super important. They're like, oh, we're home, it's fine, we can watch them. But once they go back to work, I think we're going to see a really big issue with that.
Yeah, I think that they are going to be very well loved, but then I think we're going to have some over attachment issues, don't you think? So like people like said, I don't know if everyone will necessarily see the value behind crating because they're not leaving the house.
Right.
So then the dog isn't necessarily spending any time in the crate. So what are some things they can do, you know, even though they're at home to establish the crate as a useful tool for them moving forward? What are some things they can do?
They can do some rotation. So I'm not saying keep them in there all day like you would if you're at work. But I would do, like, if you're going to vacuum the floor, just put them in there, do small increments to start, like 10, 15 minutes to get them acclimated. They're probably going to whine, but you just have to ignore them. And then just let them out and do that multiple times throughout the day, because once you're gone at work, they're probably going to be spending most of their time in there. So just doing rotations to make it more like a work day, I guess.
What if somebody says, like, my dog just doesn't like the crate at all? Like, I can't get him to go in the crate at all. Say it's an 8-week-old dog, and even by throwing treats, they're food driven, and even by throwing treats in the crate, the dog won't go in on its own. So they have to physically pick the dog up and put it in the crate. Is that okay?
Not necessarily. You don't want to force it on them, but you might start feeding dinner close to the crates with the door open. Don't ever shut the door on the dog. Continue to do your treats. You can also work on mat training. So training your dog to go to a mat, something that they're going to be comfortable with. Once they start learning that behavior, they're going to be comfortable with the association to the mat. So then you can start putting the mat in the crate, and they're used to the mat. So they're like, well, this is nothing's bad ever happened on the mat. And you can start to train getting into the crate with the mat, perhaps that way.
Got it. So if they, and the mat training is nice because you can take the mat anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. So any social interactions that they may be nervous, the mat could be their comfort zone for that.
Right. So like if you had neighbors or friends over, whenever we're allowed to do that again, and you put the mat down, then the dog would know. You could teach a stay like command on the mat.
Yeah.
Right.
And you can
So,
teach like socialization and things like that, even times like this, like if you're in your front yard, use the mat as a, lay down, stay type of thing, but then also use it as controlling his reactions to people walking by. Because I'm sure once the weather's nice, people are going to want to be outside. So you could also use it in that aspect too.
so how does somebody go about, like, if they're like, ooh, I like this idea of the mat, whether it be like a yoga mat or a bath mat or a towel even, how do they first start to get the dog to associate the mat to being someplace they want to be?
So with any behavior, you want to break it down into very small, achievable points. So you could start with the puppy looking at the mat, click, treat, or yes, treat, whatever, however they're training. Once the dog starts looking at it frequently, you can start, if he walks towards it, click, treat. Any positive interactions with the mat, you can start rewarding. Once the pet is looking at it, it's walking up to it, you can start with one paw being on the mat, and you're rewarding that multiple times. Then you increase your criteria. So then you want 2 feet on the mat. So then you start rewarding the dog for that and not necessarily just the looking and the walking towards.
So if you're clicker training, and what's the value? So like if you're talking about clicker training, for those people who don't know what clicker training is, explain to them what clicker training is and like why we like it.
So clicker training, it's a positive reinforcement method, but the clicker is a marker. So we talk to the dogs every day, and yes, they love it when we talk to them, but the clicker means a good thing is going to happen. A reward is coming. And so using the clicker, the puppy's going to realize when he hears that, he did something good, and he's going to want to keep doing.
Right. So, and then that gives them a bridge to a reward. It gives them a little bit more time to deliver the positive reinforcement.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So you're marking that behavior in time, and then you do want that treat to follow pretty quickly after.
So can people just grab a clicker and start clicking?
I would not recommend that.
So how do they get the dog to associate the clicker to the positive reinforcement?
You can start with just clicking treat. Like if the puppy looks at you, clicking treat, click treat. Do that a few times, and then if the puppy knows sit, that's a good easy one. Asking the dog for a sit, and then clicking and treating that way as well.
So then they start to know, you pull the clicker out, I'm going to get something. I'm working for something, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So then say that mat's in the kitchen, and anytime the dog looks at the mat, you're clicking and treating. And then now you're going to require more. Anytime that the dog walks on the mat or walks across it just by accident, not even on purpose, right? I mean, as soon as they put a foot on the mat, you're clicking that.
Right. During a training session, now I would recommend keeping that mat up. So I wouldn't just have that mat laying around. So if it's a yoga mat, I would make sure, like if you're a person who does yoga, I probably wouldn't pick a yoga mat if you're going to have your yoga mat laying down, because you're going to want to do this strategically in a way, because you're not going to want it to be something that's laying around all the time. That way, if the dog's walking on the surface and you're not around, he's going to get discouraged because he's not getting right.
Right. So then you have variable reinforcement, which is going to kill it. So you roll up the device after you're done training that session.
Right.
Yeah. So if you're a Katie Ray, you wouldn't do the yoga.
Exactly. Because
if you're me and never does yoga, then you can use the yoga mat. Okay.
Right.
Okay, got it. So that's very helpful. I think that it's an easy behavior. The mat training is pretty easy from the standpoint of, like, from a skill set for the dog to pick up on and for an owner to reinforce, but yet can offer a lot of possibilities for the owner.
Yeah. And then I would just like to remind people doing short training sessions. So don't try to like beat this in your dog's head within like an hour or a day even. So you're going to want these training sessions to be like a minute to 2 minutes, 3 minutes tops. Once you, definitely with these little puppies, once you start seeing them straying off, just end the session. I mean, end it in a positive way. So give them a jackpot of treats, or love on them, play a game of tug of war or something, or not tug of war. I don't know what everybody's recommending now, but there's very back and forth ways with tug of war, but do something fun with them so that you're not just ending the session and
ending it on a positive note, basically. Yeah. Okay. And so then as far as crate training goes, same thing can apply, right? I mean, the dog, if they even go in to get the treat, if you break it down into steps, and then you can click and treat that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Should they feed in the crate? Like if the dog's not afraid of the crate, if they're not a dog that's afraid of going in, can they feed in the crate?
Yeah.
Okay. And then what about like even putting Kongs in where the dog can go in and the Kong's tied in the crate if you're home so that they're not going to
Yeah.
eat near your foreign body. But, you know, they could chew on the Kong with the door open and something good is happening inside the crate while they're
Yeah.
in there, but then they get to leave once they're done.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good idea as well.
Yeah. Okay. Are you ready to train your next dog?
Sure, absolutely. I'm a sponge over here.
Harrison, how many things has Harrison messed up with his own dog? Is he listening going, oh, crud, I've messed up all these things? Yeah, that's probably what he's saying.
Maybe start with the things he's done right. Is it a short list?
It's a short list of the things he's done right. Oh, gosh. Okay, so in order to keep owners from forming attachments or hyper attachments, they shouldn't overgreet the dog, right?
Right.
And let's see here, what else? Vary the time frames in the crates up,
Yes.
right? So throughout the day, the dog's spending time in the crate, whether they're in the house or not.
Right. And doing variable times. Because a lot of people are like, well, we use it at night. Well, then
Right.
that could, do other attachments. So then they know they're having to go to bed. They know everybody's leaving them, things like that.
Right. So if they already have a dog who now they've made the mistake of not doing this, they're 8 weeks into having the puppy at home and they're like, oh, crud, I can see what these guys are talking about. This could be a problem. How are they going to untrain some of the behavior? So now they're going to put the dog in the crate and it barks the whole time it's in the crate. Do they just completely ignore the behavior until the dog stops barking?
To a certain extent, yes. But you just don't want to cave in too early because the dog's just going to learn that it needs to bark longer and harder for you to let him out the next time. So you don't want to build that behavior up as well. Like you don't want that to happen. So if you're backtracking and you have to go, I wouldn't put them in there for too long because it is different. It's a change in routine. But yes, they do have to bark it out, unfortunately.
Yep, bark it out. That's what we say, isn't it? Bark it out. Yeah, I think there's a very, with all your training, do they teach you about some dogs that have claustrophobia, like true confinement issues?
Yes, I went to a conference and they did talk about that. So if your dog is super anxious, you don't ever want to push that on them. That's when you have to reevaluate, like, does your dog really need to be in a crate? Is it absolutely necessary? Or can you confine them to a kitchen that they're not going to get into anything or hurt themselves, or a laundry room? Can you use X pens so that they don't seem as that they're so closed off?
Right. If a dog has confinement issues, what are its most likely things like it's doing when it's in the crate? Like how can somebody distinguish between a dog who's just being, stubborn and doesn't want to be in there, but doesn't really care, just doesn't want to, but then those that are like really claustrophobic?
Yeah, I think one of the things that they talked about at the conference was taking video, because once you leave, like a lot of times, like they would show videos the dog was fine, they had a Kong, but then once the owner left, you will see like self-destruction, digging, biting the cage, trying to escape the cage, things like that. Like we don't want the pets to hurt themselves. So
Right. So if you're videotaping, then you can kind of see what they're doing versus like a lot of the dogs will just sit in a crate and just bark the whole time, but they're not doing anything but barking.
Right.
It's like they're not even working hard.
Right. Yeah, they're just barking. But yeah. I think another thing is you can do classical music. So pheromones, there's other things that you can help make the crate a more positive, calming experience as well.
So maybe even when they're bringing these puppies home, before they ever even show a sign of a problem, using like dog appeasing pheromone, like Adaptil, in there before the dog even has an issue, the white noise or the calming music, a fan, something like that. Even if the dog doesn't have any issues, just to start with those things, right? Yeah.
If you can make it as positive as you can, I think that's better than having to backtrack later.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, would you agree that most people reinforce behaviors that they didn't want, like by accident? They just, by accident, they just reinforce things that they didn't realize that they were reinforcing.
Yeah, I agree with that statement. I think another thing with clicker training is you're looking for behaviors that you want to see repeated rather than looking at all the bad behaviors that you don't want to see happen. And so it really gets the people, definitely with us being at home, you can definitely sit and observe your puppy. I would recommend sitting down and anything that he's doing, write down, take notes. I mean, it sounds silly, but like any behavior that you want to see repeated, that's the time where you need a clicker and treats or however you're going to train to reinforce those behaviors before it becomes an issue. Like if you came home and your puppy didn't jump on you, I would reinforce that instead of getting super excited because he's not jumping. So if you stop the behavior before it becomes an issue, you train a wanted behavior instead. I think that's easier training than having to go back and undo something that you didn't want to happen.
Yeah, exactly. I think the clicker training does allow you to focus on the good things. Like so many people want to just correct like things that are negative. So like things that, you know, you want to say no, you know what I mean? Or you're watching for all the things that they're doing wrong.
Right.
And the clicker training makes you focus on what they're doing right because you're tagging those behaviors.
Right.
So it's interesting to get people just to shift their thinking completely at 180.
Yes, because I think a lot of people when they get a puppy, I mean, I could just be speaking out, I don't know. But some people, I don't want my dog to jump, I don't want my dog to bite. Instead of thinking about all the good things that you could be molding your puppy to do, we just think about the bad things, and that's everyone.
Oh yeah, I agree. That's just human nature, you know, the way they're thinking about it. Yeah. So very interesting.
Very interesting.
Stop. Okay. So kittens, is there anything people need to watch out for with kittens that you can think of, that people that are getting kittens? The only thing I could think of would be like play aggression.
Yeah.
You know, like if they're, you know, like encouraging play aggression, if the kitten's like really, you know, maybe they adopted it really early and so it didn't have its litter mates, and then, you know, you see those stalking behaviors and things like that, you know, trying not to encourage those types of behaviors. But kittens, probably because they're just maybe smarter than dogs, I don't know. They just don't need a whole lot of training. Like you can set them up and they seem to just get it, you know. Yeah, it's fascinating to watch. They just figure it out, and for the most part, they don't cause too much trouble. The one thing I would say most people get confused about with kittens would be marking, like their marking behavior with their claws, you know, and thinking that they're being destructive when actually they're just marking.
Yeah, having lots of enrichment. Even though we're here to play with them, I think getting them to use those other methods and to entertain themselves.
Yeah, I would say that's the biggest thing attacking for kittens is probably enrichment, play, like different things for them to do, whether it be climbing on higher surfaces or, you know, predatory play, you know, capturing, things like that. Seems like that's what a lot of the kittens will be missing. So keeping that in mind. Well, yeah. Do you have anything you want to add?
I think you guys are doing great. You should take all of their advice without question.
Oh gosh. So what else is happening at ASPC this week? Anything else going on you guys have seen or participated in, or anything getting ready to start, anything interesting?
Well, it's Monday, so not a lot is happening yet. So
just getting started.
I'm just glad to, you know, be working. And
how was it being on the weekly rotation? Did you think it was weird?
I didn't. A lot of people thought it was super weird, but I don't believe that I've taken a week off since I've started. So I enjoyed the time off, and I did a lot of house projects. And
yeah, that's a perfect way to look at it. Is, you know, if you're going to be stuck there, then make it a positive. Mm-hmm. So
some house DIY projects. So that was fun.
Good. Harrison, are you there? Do you have any, does anybody have any questions? Was anybody watching to have any questions?
Said hi.
Jessica Self said hi.
Oh, we'll tell her. Hello, Jessica. We used your Zoom idea. This was Jessica's idea to do Zoom for the podcast. So we used her idea, and then we are practicing this week, and then next week we're hoping to do the extended family.
Oh, cool. Okay.
I'm gonna have my aunts and uncles who are all in their 70s on the podcast next week. Is my hope. That's what the challenge anyway. We'll see if we can get it done. Yeah.
Hopefully
You
they
know,
can use a computer better than I can because I'm not very good at that. So I think that
You've
might be
done
your
just
only
fine.
downfall.
Yeah, exactly. Oh gosh. All right. Well, do we have anything else? Did you have anything else you want to discuss this week on the podcast?
No,
Are you sure?
pretty sure.
Are you positive?
You guys covered just about everything.
You covered it. We covered
I think
everything.
you did.
Okay, come on. Really?
Yeah.
You don't have anything in there. Anything in that brain of yours?
Any questions?
Questions? Yeah.
No, I think you guys did great. I
Okay.
think you're exactly right. They just need to create a clicker for kids. I think they make mats for kids. How do we mat train our
That's
kids?
actually
Don't get
called
mat.
tag teach. That is the
It's
thing.
called
Tag
tag
teach.
people.
It is really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah.
It's a real thing. A lot of gymnasts use it for the kids because it's really cool. It's a really interesting thing. You should look into it.
We shall look into that then.
There you go. There's your new project.
There you go.
Tag teach.
One of many.
Tag teach Calvin. Is it too old to tag teach Harrison and
I think his behaviors are pretty
Holden
much
and
set.
Trevor?
No,
Tough
it's
to teach.
not.
See, she says it's not.
It's not.
There
Okay.
you go.
There we
They
go.
give examples that people are using on their husbands. So
Ah,
go.
Okay.
of course they are.
I'll have to report back in on that. I'm totally looking into that now. Jessica, check into that for Kevin. You never know what we were able to accomplish.
I think the success rate on that would be low.
but we
All
would
right,
be using
everybody.
it, you wouldn't even know.
Ah,
That's
there
right.
go.
You wouldn't even know I was doing it.
You're
It
being
might be a-
controlled and you don't even know
Exactly. All right, everybody. Well, we will cut the podcast here. Let us know if you have any questions. You can always check out the podcast every Monday. Do you want to do the closing because you've had such little to say today?
No, I think you can go ahead.
Okay. Well, all right. So we'll wrap up the podcast here. We'll see you guys next Monday, live around Monday sometime, probably around the same time, live from the bunker until we can get out of this madness. Allie, I'd like to thank you for joining us today and imparting your pearls of wisdom for everybody.
Thanks for having me.
Yep. And don't hesitate to reach out if you guys want more information from Allie. You can always email, text, call. We're happy to discuss the behavior stuff with you guys. And don't forget to check out the merch store. And we'll see you next time on 5 Boys in a Business. Bye, everybody.